All right, so week one is officially in the books, and we're gonna go along with week two. I'm here with Koby again, Dillon again, Caden again, and then a new face, Devin Sacks. So we are going to go over last week. Let's see. Um, Go over last week's picks, standings, whatever you have. Let's see. So we're gonna go over last week's games to start. So week one. Thursday night football, Ravens and Chiefs. Um, Very good game, kind of a sloppy game, lots of penalties called. That's expected anytime at Arrowhead. Um, could have had one of the most insane endings of all time, except we don't play by the college rules with 1 foot in. You got to have 2 feet in. Isaiah Likely learned that the hard way. So, anybody have any analysis on this game? Any thoughts or anything?
No, I don't. Ravens got to figure out their interior line, or Lamar's going to be running around like that all year, and it's not going to be a great recipe for them.
Yeah, Lamar didn't practice because of soreness. I'm not surprised because he was running all over that field. You know, I'm a big Derrick Henry guy. They need to utilize him more, just like the Titans never did. So,
Yeah, I will say, every single time Xavier Worthy got the ball, which is only 3 times, but he scored on 2 of them. I sent that meme of super bad, and it was Seth Rogen on the ground as a cop saying he's the fastest kid alive. I think he's the fastest kid alive because that dude is insane.
yeah, it's an 40-time record setter right there. So, you know, I knew out of college he'd be good. I was very mad he went to Kansas City, but, you know,
Perfect
nothing
in
ever
that
goes the way
offense.
that I want to in the NFL. So, speaking of that, the next game on the list, the Packers, Eagles. I thought this was a pretty good game. It was a good game for anyone that's not an NFL fan to watch. Um, Very heartbreaking at the end when Jordan Love thankfully only sprained his MCL. Looked like it was going to be a lot worse of an injury, but I'm only going to be depressed for a month instead of, you know, an entire season, which they have not ruled him out for the game yet, which is absolutely crazy. I think they should definitely just sideline him for the week. I think they obviously will. But Malik Willis time in Green Bay, the Eagles also did not look very good. Thankfully, they have Saquon Barkley, so you know he really saved them. Um, so then the next game was the Cardinals and Bills. I didn't get to watch much of this game, but I had Josh Allen on my fantasy team. So Devin, let's hear your thoughts since you were the only one that picked the Cardinals and you almost had that one right.
Yeah, I mean, last year Cardinals without Kyler Murray and they were not healthy went in and beat Dallas last year. So I thought with the healthy Cardinals team they'd be able to do it, but they didn't get Marvin Harrison the ball at all. And I know he had that early drop, but it was his first live action. But after today, I don't know if y'all saw, but today Kyler was like, he's not going to be a star in the offense and he's not going to get the ball every time, which is crazy. But yeah, I thought they were going to pull the upset off, but too many turnovers that led to the win for Buffalo. So
Very crazy that, you know, he goes as a top 5 pick in the NFL draft and then Kyler Murray comes out and says that. Told you
yeah,
I've never liked Kyler Murray and I never will. So, you know, not finding him in wide open in the end zone to win that game, not being able to see over his offensive line, kind of just Josh Giles-esque there. Okay, so
That's
the
correct.
next game after that, I was dumb enough to pick them in the Survivor. I know a few other people were, but the T. Higgins list and pretty much Jamar Chaseless Bengals ended up losing to the Pats. I wish Brady was here to talk about this one because he's been, you know, cocking off about it all week. Um, I think it was a fluke of a game. I mean, Bengals usually are not very good in September, but you know, it's the Pats. I mean, come on, it's Jacoby Brissett at quarterback.
Tim, what am I telling you? These Bengals are not going to be good this year. They're going to be a big disappointment.
Well, you know, you might be right because Brady picked them for the Super Bowl. So, you know, that could be right. So then I'll let the Vikings fan in here. Vikings fans talk about the next game. Giants and Vikings. Giants looked horrible. Daniel Jones. I think they
Needs
need
to
to go
be
back
cut.
to Tommy Cutlets at quarterback on that one.
Yeah, that was bad. I mean, the Vikings aren't very good this year, and the Giants made them look like the Chiefs. Like it was just a disaster of a game. Danny Dimes isn't worth a dime. Like their team's just absolutely horrible. As a Vikings fan, it made me happy, but I was also like, there's no need to get my hopes up for this year because it's already pretty chalked. But it was good to at least say that we won a game this year, so I'll take it.
Can we get
Yeah, I
Ryan
would.
Manning back?
True. I would say the Giants. On the Giants side, there's not much to say other than they chose to pay Daniel Jones over Saquon. Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
They're. I'm not going to say they're the worst team in the league 'cause there's the Panthers out there, but it'll be a hell of a game if we do get to see that this year. Vikings side, Sam Darnold playing the Giants. Also, the Giants, they pay all that money for their pass rush, and it's just like, no, you're going up against one of the better tackle duos in the league, but still, get a pass rush. Getting all that money for what? Anyways, the Vikings side, Sam Darnold looked good. Kevin O'Connell, I'm still kind of, I'm not going to say Kevin O'Connell's a top 10 coach in the league or any of that, but I will say Kevin O'Connell is a top 5 coach in the league in the sense of just developing a quarterback. If he was just a quarterback's coach, I think he would be the best QB coach in the league. So I think Darnold's going to, he'll have spots where he looks pretty good with the Vikings. They got a tough one against the Niners coming up. But I think the Vikings are still going to be a team that's going to hover around that 7 to 8 win total this season.
It's fair enough point. Yeah, if you watched Hard Knocks, the Giants offseason this year, pretty much their whole thing was centered around Malik Neighbors, Malik Neighbors, Malik Neighbors, and then their GM being like, nah, we don't need Saquon. So yeah, clearly you guys do need Saquon. Your starting running back is Devin Singletary. So then that takes us on to our next game. The Bears and the Titans. Titans were leading pretty much the entire game of this. Caleb Williams, garbage. He looked like garbage. Simply
He didn't
put,
even have 100 yards passing.
he didn't
Not
have
even
100
Levis
yards
was
passing.
worse,
He had
though.
93 yards passing off 14 completions. You know what that is? A yard? That's 6 yards a pass. That's horrible. That's absolutely terrible. His defense bailed him out that entire game. Will Levis drops to his knees after throwing that pick six. Not sure why he was even doing that in the first place. Yeah, there you go, Dillon.
Surrender
Exactly what
Cobra.
he did. Caleb Williams gets absolutely saved, and he will get absolutely torched on Sunday Night Football this week. Does anybody else have anything to say? Because that game made me so mad, not only as a Packers fan, but someone that's just like, Caleb Williams not going to pass for 4,000 yards, not going to get anything above 30 touchdowns. He's going to have a 2020 season, just like I said. He's on pace right now for that, probably with 0-0 with 93 yards,
Well,
Yeah.
Titans head coach said it himself. He's like, we would have been better off just punting the ball and letting our defense out there.
Ryan Stonehouse, one of the best punters in the league right there, too. You don't expect a punter shout out, but also they
To
have Torrey
defend
Taylor
my
on the Bears, so
Yeah, that's bad.
I
To
think it's-
defend the boys in Soldier Basement, I must say CJ Stroud had a horrible first game last year, and he ended up being okay. I don't know if Caleb Williams has that, but he does have more around him and more of a team to be able to bounce back. With that being said, like, I don't know. I'm kind of out on him, have been out on him, but I hope he proves me wrong.
Well, I hope he sucks because I don't want to deal with that in the division as a Vikings fan, obviously. But I would say Caleb Williams did nothing to help them win that game. He also did nothing to help them lose that game. Those quarterbacks were just seeing who's going to shit the bed first on Sunday in Soldier Field, and it was Will Levis, which pretty disappointing. He's got a lot more starts, a lot more snaps as a starter, and he does everything he can to help his team lose that game, and he got it accomplished.
maybe they shouldn't have moved on from Ryan Tannehill or Malik Willis as soon as they did, but they did, and the Titans are going to have to figure that out this week against the Jets. So then, Dillon and Caden, you both talked in the last one, but I'm going to have you continue. What were you thinking when you picked the Panthers? Was anybody optimistic about the Panthers? Because that was by far the worst team last Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I was optimistic about the Panthers. I remember saying, Bryce Young will take that step in year two, and they didn't really give him much to work with, but I just kind of expected him to play a little better. I'm kind of looking at your desktop here. You got all these different like server resumes and all that, and like in a year or two, like Bryce Young's probably gonna have to be looking for one of those to fill out because like that was absolutely atrocious. They had no shot in that game, and the Saints absolutely dog walked them, and no one is high on the Saints this year.
Yeah, I would say it was more about my pessimism about the Saints rather than optimism about the Panthers. The one thing I'll say about Bryce Young, he might be the worst. He might be the biggest bust of that class, might be one of the worst quarterbacks to ever be picked first overall, but we'll never actually truly get to know just because put in a crappy situation with crappy pieces around him. Honestly, it's a case with a lot of these QBs who end up bust, but you know, whatever.
Yeah. So then that'll take us to the next game. Chris Boswell hit 6 field goals in this game, which so did Jake Moody in the Monday Night Football game, but no one's talking about Boswell doing it. But Falcons Steelers, this was one of the games that we had a 50-50 split on. I thought this would be the one game that would go to OT. It almost did. Just kind of a gross game overall. The Steelers look just like them old selves, terrible offense, defense saves them. Falcons looked pretty disappointing on offense, and their defense was good enough to stop field goal or stop touchdowns and allow field goals. But let's see, Koby, what'd you feel about that game? Did you watch that game at all?
I feel the Falcons need to learn how to block TJ Watt, and Kirk Cousins looked like his Achilles is slowing him down big time because the Kirk Cousins of normal, they win that game because you got how many weapons on that team? There's no reason you can't beat the Steelers.
That's a fair point. It's a tough
Yeah.
task to ask for to block TJ Watt. It's always double teaming. So then Dolphins, yes.
Can I get a word in on Kirk Cousins, please?
Yes. Please talk about Kirk Cousins.
So this man, he's just a franchise killer. He just demands all this money, goes to his franchise, healthy or not. I don't care if he's not healthy. He's just gonna sabotage your franchise, take your cap space. They have weapons right now. Guess what? They had weapons in 2018 and a good defense when he got there with the Vikings. He's not going to do anything with it. Let me tell you, Falcons fans, you're going to be living in hell all year and next year if he's still there. He just sucks as a quarterback. He doesn't even work on Tuesdays. Going to work on Tuesdays. You're the damn quarterback of an NFL franchise. Going to work on Tuesday. Yeah, the whole offseason is like just I'm so glad he's out of the purple and gold.
You rather have
I remember right last week you were pretty optimistic about the Falcons, saying they got Kirk Cousins. They know he knows how to win football games, and now you're just going to town.
Oh, I did say he'll get them to the playoffs and they will lose in the first round. And honestly, yeah, he'll because of a weak NFC and NFC South. I stand by that. They will get to the playoffs and lose in the first round, but you're never going to be real hopeful about them winning the Super Bowl. So yes, I still stand by that statement last week. They'll still probably win football games.
That's a fair point. It's just week 1. So then the next game, Jags and Dolphins. Brady was the only one that picked the Jags. He was almost right about it too. Took the Dolphins, 4 quarters to finally put it together. Tyreek Hill went off just as people speculated he would after getting arrested before the game. Dolphins are going to be on a short week this week on Thursday night, so we'll talk about that soon. I don't think there's much else to talk about in that one. So then Colts and Texans. Dillon, you were almost right on that one.
Said it last week, I'll say it again. I think Anthony Richardson is the greatest quarterback of all time. Dude had 200 and some passing yards on 9 completions. Like, when I think of myself playing like NCAA, all I do is just run it with my quarterback or throw bombs downfield. And that's what Anthony Richardson does, and that's why I love him. Jonathan Taylor really didn't do a ton, the astronaut himself, because I was really hoping that he'd be able to help will them to a win too. But I mean, that was one of the games of the week for sure for me. I mean, they were both kind of like getting really ballsy, and like Texans went for it, and then Colts got downfield and they went for it on 4th and goal, and like both times they could have just kind of took the points and then tried to get a touchdown the next drive, use their timeout. So they're like, screw it, we're going for it. And it was just good to see 2 young, good quarterbacks battle. Colts will be just fine.
Yeah, that was one of those AFC South matches that, just almost went into OT. Really good game. One of the best week one games, honestly. 29-27 final in that one. So then Chargers and Raiders. Did anybody see how many fights broke out at that game? I don't think there's much talk about this game, but the amount of fights that I saw on Twitter that happened at this game was outrageous.
Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah, it was like literally there was like this one thing that I saw that was like a thread of like 15 different fights of this. Yeah. Not much else to mention. Then the next week or the next game, Seahawks, Broncos, that, the Seahawks almost choked that one. I know the only person that's super high on the Seahawks is Josh, who isn't here. Bo Nix looked bad, but he didn't look like the worst rookie quarterback, I'd say.
Couldn't have looked any worse than Bryce Young. So
Yeah, no
bottom
one
of the
look as bad as Bryce Young unless it's maybe Daniel Jones. So then the next game after that, I think one of the teams that looked the worst were the Browns and Deshaun Watson, which I don't know why so many people were so low on the Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys really looked pretty good in that game. The corpse of Zeke Elliott isn't, I think he's gonna last maybe 5 weeks this year, but um, let's see who all picked Cleveland.
I did.
I
Kobe,
did.
Kobe, Devin, whoever. Cleveland. What do you feel about them this week now?
I think they need to play Jameis Winston, to be honest. At least Jameis will throw the ball down the field. Watson looks like he hasn't played a game of football in 5 years, so. But Cleveland's offense looks really bad because not only did they not be able to pass the ball, they couldn't get the run game going either. So they forced early. I felt like they were in it, but then Dak and CD's connection just took over. So
Yeah, that I would 100% agree on the Jameis Winston thing. Like I said last week, they have 4 quarterbacks. Why not try to trade away
yeah,
Huntley or Winston for something? But they always say week one overreactions. But Deshaun Watson was once one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and now he looks terrible.
Sad.
So then the next game was the Commanders and the Bucks, which the Bucks look like one of the best teams, which they were playing the Commanders' awful secondary, but Baker Mayfield looked really good, and Jaden Daniels also looked pretty good. So Devin, going off you again, I know you're a big Bucks guy, so let's hear about your thoughts on how Baker looked.
good. He looked amazing. Honestly, I mean, he looks probably the most comfortable I've seen him play since his last year at OU. To be honest, I know that one year he took Cleveland to the playoffs and they won a game, but he looks the most comfortable he's been. Looks like he's having fun again, and Baker is the best when he's playing, having fun. So
I did actually see that Baker has the most touchdowns in the NFL since joining the Bucks, besides Dak Prescott and Jordan Love. So that's pretty crazy.
that's crazy.
Then the next game, this was one of the best games as well. The Rams and Lions. Anytime Stafford goes back to Detroit, it's always a good game. Caden had picked the Rams, so had Mikkel. Caden, you almost had that one right.
Yeah, I think I really just picked the Rams just because when Matthew Stafford is playing good, I thought he played really good again that Sunday night. They're right there. He's just very. I don't even know if he's underrated, but in my mind, he's easily a top 5 or 6 QB when he's healthy and playing. Just so talented. The throws he makes, it's just fun to watch.
Yeah, and that last drive, just give it to David Montgomery. Caden calls him David Opportunity. He just goes and runs through people. That entire last drive, that's all that he was doing. Won me a fantasy game because of that. So thank you, David Montgomery. So then the Monday Night Football game, last game on the slate. Rodgers did not look so hot in his return. And a lot of people probably lost because of that Christian McCaffrey sitting out. And, it wasn't announced till 10 minutes before the game Monday night, even though Jordan Mason apparently knew that he was starting on Friday night. So, anybody have anything to say about the Jets or any overreactions on them week one? Or I think the Niners look like they're probably one of the best teams in the league yet again.
Yeah.
The Niners should be good. Jets, they got a little rust. I mean, Rodgers hasn't played in how long? He's 40 plus years old. So I think give them a few weeks and they'll get it together. But the defense is still pretty solid. And once they get that connection with Garrett Wilson, I think we'll be ready to rock.
Yeah, and perfect bounce back game for the Jets this week against the Titans. I'm sure that'll be fine. Also, for whatever reason, this thing said it's going to end, so I'm going to start a new one real quick.
May I add a Tyrod Taylor to Allen Lazard touchdown?
Honestly, thought
Tyrod
that
Taylor, Lazard played very well too.
honestly thought that the Jets didn't look like I would be encouraged if I was a Jets fan. Like you saw the Rodgers to Wilson connection. They had a couple dropped passes on those first couple drives that cost them. Brees Hall looked good. I think once they get in rhythm, Rodgers knocks off the rust, they'll be fine. That offense will be clicking.
That's fair. All right, so this is going to be our standings after week one. Me and Dillon at the top. I'm one game better, though, because he picked the Panthers. And then at the bottom, we have Koby and Caden. So, it's just week one. Caden was saying that he'll find his way out of the cellar. So I'm sure Koby's thinking the same thing.
It smells like a comeback.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
It's just week one. Week two. So, and we'll talk about week two with some of the matchups here. Not a ton of good ones, I will say that. Let's see. We got Thursday night football to start out. We got more people going with the Dolphins, but I'm going to start this off by saying Josh Allen. I originally went with Miami, but Josh Allen is 10-2 in his career against Miami. So, I'm not going to go against the best quarterback in the league. And yes, I said the best quarterback in the league because he is. He's better than Patrick Mahomes, and I'll stand by that statement, Dillon. So let's see. Koby, you were the only other one that said Bills. So let's hear your reasoning behind it.
I just think that Miami defense is just not up to par. And Josh Allen will find a way to get the ball to his weapons. And there's no way they're going to shut down Kincaid again for a second week in a row. So they'll have new weapons to introduce, like Kincaid. And the Dolphins are just so hit or miss on offense. They're look unstoppable at times, and other times they're just atrocious. So I think in the end, it'll be a close game, but I think the Bills prevail.
I would have to agree with that one. And let's see. We're going to go with Dillon. Give me your thoughts on the Dolphins in this matchup.
When I was making the pick, I kind of thought everyone would go Buffalo after their big comeback and everything. So I was still trying to be a little different, but I also did pick the Dolphins to win the division. So kind of just riding with my season long pick there. I mean, Tua was good week one. I know you don't probably want to admit it, but he had a good week. I think he was the only quarterback to throw for like over 300 yards this week or something crazy. He was like one of the highest passing yard leaders this past week. Tyreek Hill's still just gonna go nuts. Their defense definitely scares me. Says Dolphins -2.5, and the total is 48.5, so they expect it to be a high scoring game, which I mean, I'd like to say the Dolphins are going to probably be able to outpace the Bills. Just, I don't know if Josh Allen's got the weapons for it right now. Like you saw, he had to single-handedly bring them back into that game using his legs, not as much throwing it. So, yeah, just going to roll with the Dolphins.
Like I said last week with Josh Allen, you take him and Tua and switch them. Josh Allen's winning the Super Bowl every single year with that Dolphins offense. What's Tua doing with Buffalo? Nothing. He's not going to make the playoffs. He's not nearly as good of a quarterback as Josh Allen. And Riggs Preeb, if you're watching somewhere, I will continue to die on that hill. So Then we got the Niners and Vikings, and none of the Vikings faithful believes in them in this one, which honestly, if I remember back in time, I feel like the Vikings actually are kind of decent against the Niners throughout history. But,
We beat them last year.
they did beat them last year. I was going to say, and I remember a few years
Greg
ago in the
Lewis.
football game, they beat them too. But obviously,
Greg Lewis,
they didn't
too.
have Sam Darnold at quarterback, which he did look decent last week, but I can't trust it when he's playing the Giants. Caden, give me some insight on this game.
Yeah, I think it could be a sneaky game for San Fran. You got to go to Minnesota. You're coming off a short week. You just played Monday night. Jordan Mason, I don't think he's probably talented and good kid. I don't think he's probably as good as he showed the other night. I don't think he's going to do that on a consistent basis if he has to play for a long time. I also do think that Vikings defense is going to be pretty improved this year, but I think what it's going to come down to is Sam Darnold, that consistency piece. Probably just going to make one or two mistakes that are going to cost the Vikings in this game, and Niners get out of Minnesota with around a 7 to 10 point win.
Yeah, I could definitely see it being a lot closer than a lot of people probably think. So then our next game, this is one where nobody in this podcast right now picked the Patriots, but I don't know. Like I said, week 1, Patriots beating the Bengals. I don't know. Neither of these teams looked that impressive this week, so I'm still going to go with Seattle, but this is just one of those games where I'm like, I don't have any fantasy players besides Kenneth Walker, so what do I care about it? Devin, do you see anything happening in this game?
Both teams didn't look good at all, really. And then this one was kind of hard, I feel like, because Kenneth Walker's questionable right now. He's not practicing. And I feel like if Seahawks lose Kenneth, then that's going to be a huge blow because Geno didn't look good at all. I don't think, honestly, personally, I don't think Geno's a good QB at all. I think he's pretty mid. So, but if Kenneth doesn't play, I feel like this could go New England's way. So,
Those would be some fighting words if Josh Giles was in here, but unfortunately, he is not here tonight. Big Geno guy right there. Which brings me to the next one. He is the only one that picked the Giants against the Commanders. That's one of those NFC East games, which is just like gross. I don't know. I was thinking about picking the Giants, but just with how bad they looked last week, I can't bring myself to do that. And Jaden Daniels actually looked pretty good at times during that Tampa game last week. So I'm going to go with the Commanders on this one. Koby, let's hear what you have to say about this game.
If you look back at last year, Danny Dimes had a terrible week 1, I believe, and then he opened up and was QB1 in week 2 last season. So, I could see the Giants maybe having a surprise game, but I like Jaden Daniels, and I just think they'll have, with the more experience he gets, the better they'll get. And that defensive front is still really good. Their corners and back suck, but, I think Jaden Daniels will this team to win.
I think so too. And that's a good point about the Daniel Jones being the week 2 fantasy leader last year, because that is something that Giles told me. The next game, I don't think there's anything to talk about with this one. The Panthers are atrocious, but if there is one team that would lose a game that they should easily win, it'd be the Chargers. But that's when Brandon Staley was their coach. So not really concerned with Harbaugh as their coach. I think he won't really mess around with it too much. Does anybody have anything to say about this game?
I think it's a lot more of no one believes in the Panthers opposed to, wow, the Chargers are so good. So,
Yeah.
I think they stick a middle school, high school team and beat the Panthers at this point, because Bryce Young, horrible.
Bryce Young is basically a middle schooler with his build that he has.
They live 6 foot. There's no way. He's like 5'8" max.
All right, so then that'll bring us to the team that scored the most points in week 1 with the Saints. And then I think the Cowboys had either the second most or third most. So Cowboys defense, I think, is just going to be way too much for the Saints. I don't think Derek Carr's good still. I think he was playing a very awful Panthers defense. So everybody went Cowboys here. Does anybody see any chance of a slight upset with the Saints?
Unless
more of a chance than the Panthers upsetting the Chargers for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. So here we go. This would have been one of the best games this week, easily. But Colts Packers, most likely going to have Malik Willis at quarterback. Koby, I've been dying to hear your explanation about picking the Packers in this game.
I think we're going to ride with the player of the game, and his name is going to be Josh Jacobs, rushing for like 200 yards, because we're going to keep the ball out of Malik Willis's hands, and we're going to keep it in Josh Jacobs either catching or rushing the ball. And Jaden Reed's going to get mixed in there. He's so good, so dynamic player. And that defense, you can't forget how good that defense actually is. So I think it'll be a close game, but Anthony Richardson has a completion percentage of like 40. Can you keep that up and have 3 long touchdowns on only 9 completions? I think not. That's not the execution for winning a football game. So I think we'll get in the backfield. We'll shut down Anthony Richardson. He'll have a few turnovers, and ultimately we'll win the football game.
Joe Mixon did go off against the Colts last week. Their run defense did not look very good. I'm sure Dillon is punching the air right now at your shots at Anthony Richardson. So Dillon, please, you have the floor.
I mean, if he can, and I mean, he's got a great deep ball. Obviously, is him running it. Looks like Cam Newton out there. If he can learn to just make the simple reads across the middle and like the middle range throws, like he's gonna be really good. Obviously, that's just gonna take him playing the quarterback position longer in the NFL. I mean, he's only played like 5 games at quarterback so far in the NFL. But I think that they'll take care of business against the Packers. I know we got a bunch of big Malik Willis fans in here, so like Tim loves Malik Willis. Personally, I'm a Sean Clifford guy, but yeah, okay, yeah, Sean Clifford represent. But no, I think AR is gonna probably torch these guys, and that'll be that.
Well, we will have to see on that one. And then it'll bring me to the next game, Cleveland against Jacksonville. I thought this would be a lot closer. I thought I was going to be one of the only ones picking Jacksonville, honestly. But Koby, you are the only one that went to Cleveland. So
I think my vote would be probably Deshaun Watson gets benched by halftime, and I think famous Jameis is going to lead a comeback victory against the Jags. And I honestly hate Trevor Lawrence. What do you have? 163 yards passing last week. I mean, I think he sucks, and that's just ultimately my hate for the Jags. I just don't think they're going to pull this one out. They didn't run the ball very well last week. I mean, their leading rusher was Tank Bigsby. Tank Bigsby was horrible last year, and I just think the Browns are going to get Amari Cooper more involved, and Deshaun Watson's going to get benched, and ultimately famous Jameis is going to get us a dub.
I hope you're right about Jameis Winston taking over. I think everybody would be happy to see that. So then, Caden, do you have anything to say about the Jags in this game, or why you picked them?
No, not really. The Browns just look so bad. Deshaun looked so bad last week. It was tough for me to pick the Browns, and it's in Jacksonville, so not really super excited to view this game. So I probably won't.
Jacksonville is a tough environment to go into and win. I will say that. Jets and Titans, this is going to be a good bounce back game for the Jets, I'm sure. Nothing really to add to this. Titans looked horrible, and they blew that game against the Bears. Even if they were 1-0 like they should be, I still wouldn't pick them, and I don't think anybody would pick them in here. So we'll just go over that game. And when we did that last week with the Bengals and Dillon is switching over to his phone. When we did that last week with the Bengals and Patriots, Patriots ended up winning that. So maybe the Titans will have a chance now. But that'll take us to our next game. Buccaneers and Lions. This is going to be my game of the week. I think this game's going to be a lot closer than people think. Which I will say Detroit is hard to go to and win. Which if this game was in Tampa, I'd have a lot more confidence in the Buccaneers in general. But I'm still going to pick them as my upset of the week and the game of the week. Devin, you're the only other person that is agreeing with that one. So give me some insight on your pick.
Yeah, last year they met in the playoffs. Detroit beat them by 8. And so I think that Tampa team has kind of had, ever since the schedule got released, I think they've had this game circled. And I know Baker plays great in revenge games. And I think that offense is going to be as good as it was last week going to Detroit. Detroit looked all right. I don't think they looked the best last week against the Rams. So I think that continues. And I think Tampa Bay, I think it's going to be close. I think I got Tampa like 24-21, something like that. So.
Definitely see it being a close game. Koby, you're riding with the Lions on this one. This is one of the games where you stay along with pretty much what everyone else is saying.
Yeah, I think it's a bounce back game. I think it'll be a shootout, and I also chose it to be the game of the week. But ultimately, I think you get Amon-Ra involved in this game. You got the emergence of Jamison Williams. You still got Sam Laporta, and you got the monsters in the backfield. To throw in, they still have a decent defense, young, but I think they have capable playmakers on that defense. But I think Jared Goff found a way to get Amon-Ra the ball, and I'm gonna pick him for 2 touchdowns this week. So I think that's ultimately what gets them the dub.
Yeah, it's very odd when you don't see Amon-Ra in double-digit fantasy points. So then next game would be the the Ravens and Raiders. Nobody picked the Raiders in this. That's not a surprise. It's a West Coast team going to the East Coast for, I believe this is an early slate game. It might be a 3 o'clock game though. I'm not sure. But Ravens, don't think there's anything to mention in this game. Ravens should win this one easy. So then that'll take us to our next game, NFC West matchup. This is one of the few games that we are actually almost evenly split on this week. I picked the Cardinals. Brady, Kaysen, Devin, and Caden all picked the Cardinals as well. I don't know. I feel like this. I do like Arizona at home a lot better, and I like them on the road. And I just feel like, I don't know, Kyler Murray, I still think he sucks. He doesn't suck, but he's not nearly as good as some people think he is. But for some reason, I could just see them winning this game like 30 to like 24 or something, maybe. Um, I don't know. The Rams, I heard a lot of their players are going to be injured this week. And, Puka Nacua obviously going on the IR does not help your team whatsoever. So, Caden, let's hear why you picked the Cardinals in this one.
Yeah, no, I think it's more about just the Rams, just those injuries. Puka Nacua on the IR. They had like 2 O linemen go out in that game against Detroit. They're already shuffling their O line week 1. They're coming off a tough game, overtime game in Detroit. They got to travel back home, and then they got to travel to Arizona. Unfortunately for the Rams, I just think kind of a tough schedule to start the season, and unfortunate breaks for the Rams. So more about the Rams being down than the Cardinals being up. And I thought the Cardinals showed last week, they might not be a playoff team this year, but they're going to be frisky and they're going to be in some ball games.
So, Dylan, why did you go with the Rams on this one?
I mean, I will say I did think long and hard about possibly going with the Cardinals. I just think it's a fun play here after they had a good week 1, almost pulled off against the Bills. But ultimately, I went with my gut and was kind of like, well, I mean, Rams offense is still pretty good. Defense is solid. So I don't know. I was like, well, I mean, if Cooper Kupp's going to be playing the way that he did in week 1 too, like that helps a lot. Like they also had what was it? DeMarcus Robinson stepped up, and I was like, this dude's still in the league. From like I remember when he was on the Chiefs a long time ago, but I mean, yeah, I think that the offense for the Rams is just a lot more complete than the offense for the Cardinals is right now. But Cardinals definitely got a chance to have a really good offense in the future if they can get on the same page with some things, especially with getting Marvin Harrison the ball a little more.
I think Tyler Johnson is the pickup of the week this week in fantasy as well. You know, with Puka being on the shelf. We'll go. We'll spend a little bit more time on this game. We'll hear what Devin has to say just because our next 3 games are all the same. So, Devin, why are you riding with the Cardinals in this one?
I agree with. I think the Rams just took too many blows injury wise. I mean, I would probably choose the Rams if they had Puka and offensive line was healthy, but I think and Stafford, he's getting old and he can't scramble or make run out of the pocket to make extend the play really. So I think he's gonna be really limited on the offensive end. And I just think going in Arizona, it's kind of a tough place to play. So I think Cardinals pulled out. I think it's gonna be close, but I think at the end of the day, Cardinals pulled out.
Then, Kobe, you also went with the Rams on this.
I just think Sean McVay, he'll find a way to get his players involved. You got Tyler Dill. You got a decent tight end in Colby Parkinson, it looked like, after week 1. And Cooper Kupp had what, like 21 targets and 14 receptions? I mean, he's still Cooper Kupp. He's going to get the ball, going to be open. They'll find the way there. And the Cardinals' defense is just absolutely horrible. So it's going to be a shootout, I think, if Arizona can keep the offense going. But ultimately, I think the Rams take this one by probably 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, that is one of the games that we're the most divided on. The next game, Bengals Chiefs. I wanted to go Bengals just because Joe Burrow has a good track record in Arrowhead, but they just looked too bad last week. And, you know, like I said, emphasis on it's in Arrowhead, which means Taylor Swift is going to be there, which means lots of flags are going to be flying, lots of illegal formations called, which you've never even seen in the NFL before. So, you know, not a lot to say about this game. I'm sure the Chiefs, I hope it's a lot closer than I'm anticipating, but, you know, if this game was like 3 years ago, it'd be probably the Sunday night football game. But no, we went Chiefs across the board. Does anybody have anything to add to this game?
Joe Burrow's got to prove that he's not just aura, man.
He does
Are
have.
Jamar Chase and T. Higgins going to be playing?
I don't think Higgins is playing. I don't know. I think Chase is, but I don't think Higgins is.
Since he has no run game since they lost Mixon. I mean, they added
They're rolling out there with Zach Moss and Chase
Yeah,
Brown.
Chase
I thought Chase Brown was going to be good, but
Yeah.
Zach Moss had that span last year. We came in for Taylor and went off, but I don't think he's a RB1 that can get you 20, 25 carries a game. So
yeah.
I think Zach Taylor is a bad coach too. Like the play designs are brutal sometimes in the passing game. They need to fire him.
To just think that Zach Taylor has made a Super Bowl is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're all gonna ride with the Chiefs, unfortunately. And then this one, I was almost gonna lean Denver, but I don't know. I still almost want to lean Denver in this one, but we all went to Steelers. I was surprised by that. Steelers defense, I think, is just too good, and I feel like Bo Nix is gonna make a lot of mistakes in this one. Could easily see it being a low scoring affair or the like I said, Broncos could win this game. I think it's just one of those gross games. Would have been nice 10 years ago when it was like Ben Roethlisberger and Peyton Manning playing, but now we get to see Justin Fields and Bo Nix, which are not nearly the quarterbacks that those other two are. So, anybody else think Denver has a fighting chance in this one?
This reeks of like a 16-9 game, and it's just gonna be disgusting.
Chris Boswell, go pick him up on your fantasy if he's available because he's gonna be kicking in Denver. So, you know, 26 points last week. He might have 30 this week since he's kicking in Denver and going against an awful team. So then the Sunday night football game that they've been trying to hype up, don't care. I will say I don't think the Texans are that good in primetime usually, but the only chance that the Bears have in this one, I think, is if the NFL is officially actually scripted, which I've thought about the last few years with some of the things that go on in it. But there's like no fighting chance for the Bears in this game. I mean, Caleb Williams looked god awful. Um, Joe Mixon still looked like he had it. So did Stephon Diggs. I mean, those guys are getting up there, but they looked just fine last week. Texans obviously have like one of the best young talented rosters in the league. They have a decent defense. I think they actually have a pretty underrated defense.
Their defense is good. Nice acquisitions in the offseason too.
Yeah. And then they also drafted Max Tooley, which I'm a big Max Tooley guy. I thought that was a very big steal in the draft at linebacker. Does anybody have any faith in Caleb Williams in this?
Not with what he showed last week.
Yeah.
Dillon, I know that you got something to add being a soldier's basement.
I mean, yeah, like I think he could play great in this game, and they're probably not going to win it. There's just, I think, too big of a gap between the two teams. But I was impressed to see Diggs play so well last week. I was going against him in fantasy, and I was like, damn, this kind of blows. So I think I think Texans probably going to win by 2 touchdowns. I don't think that's a hot take. I think that's probably pretty reasonable.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see if it's actually a decent Sunday night game. I don't think it'll live up to last week's Sunday night game, that's for sure. So then Monday Night Football, we all went the Eagles except for one person. So Devin, let's hear what you have to say about picking Atlanta.
Jalen Hurts just does not look good to me. I thought he would show that he improved in the offseason in the passing game, but obviously he didn't and looked pretty bad against Green Bay. Hopefully, think he has Saquon, which saved his ass, I feel like so. But I feel like I don't think Kirk played any preseason, so it was really his first live snaps to that offense. And I think the Atlanta offense will kind of pull together, and I think it'll be close, but I think Atlanta pulls it through. I don't think Philly's gonna be able to come back and win that one.
I would have had this one on my radar as an upset pick, but I'm thinking of Philly being on 10 days rest because they played last Friday and then they get the Monday night football game, which I think is kind of stupid. But I think because they have that rest, they'll be fine because of that. It's just not a super appealing game, but I don't know. Anybody else think anything, Caden?
Yeah. Kirk Cousins led team in primetime in Philly. I've seen it. Good luck. Good night, Kirk. It's probably going for I should probably actually bench all my Falcons guys I have in fantasy. This isn't gonna go well. I'm thinking 3 picks from Kirk. Darius Slay probably gets a pick 6. Yeah, Kirk, welcome to it, buddy. This year.
Philly's defense this week.
What'd you say, Kobe? Yeah, I should probably play Philly D. Someone should get them. Someone should play them. Yeah, tough start for the Falcons.
Wow, this is coming from a cynical Vikings fan about Kirk Cousins. I mean,
oh, that was the happiest day of my life when he signed with the Falcons, let me tell you.
wow. Kobe, you got anything to say about this one?
I do not. I just think that Falcons offense is going to way overpower the Falcons, or that Eagles offense is going to overpower the Falcons, and it's just going to be a coast to victory.
Yeah, Kirk better get in the film room on Tuesday.
Thanks.
All right. Well, is anybody still in the Survivor in this chat right now?
Me.
Okay. Well, who's your Survivor pick this week, and who was it last week?
Pick this week was the Jets. And
I haven't made my pick yet.
Haven't made it yet.
I'm probably gonna go Chargers, to be honest, just to move on to the next week. So
I feel like that's what a lot of people are doing at the Chargers this week. They're like they were doing with the Bengals last week. So I don't know.
that's true. I chose Minnesota last week.
I'm gonna ride with everybody against the Titans because why not? The Titans.
Not a big Will Levis guy.
No, I absolutely hate Will Levis. I love he's got a cannon for an arm, but he has yet to show me any capability of actually playing a good quarterback.
He puts mayonnaise in coffee. Who would cheer for them?
That's outrageous.
That's wild.
All right, well, that's gonna do it for week 2. I would say hopefully week 3 has a better slate, but it's an even worse slate. So we will be back for week 3 next Wednesday. Appreciate you guys being on, and hopefully it's a better week this week for Kirk Cousins, huh, Caden?
Nah, doubt it. Probably
Get
worse
ready to
than
learn Philly, buddy.
3 picks. Write it down.
Write it down. Betting guys. All right, get your bookies.